Imagine a stormy New York night, a little girl's voice slicing through the rain-soaked darkness, screaming, "Don't leave me here." Her stepmother slams a door, locking her in a cold, shadowy closet. Then, a millionaire, driving by in his sleek Rolls-Royce, hears her desperate cry and halts, his heart pounding. What could drive a child to such terror, trapped in her own home? Why would a wealthy stranger, hardened by years of solitude, stop everything to intervene? This is a story of fear, compassion, and a single moment that rewrites lives. You're about to dive into a tale so raw, so emotional, it'll grip your soul and leave you breathless. Join us for the unforgettable journey of Mia, Victor Langston, and an act of courage that defies all odds. Hit play, and let's unravel a story that'll tug at your heartstrings and warm your heart. Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel, where we unearth stories that hit you deep in the soul, spark hope, and celebrate the power of human connection. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button and join our vibrant community of story lovers. We're beyond thrilled to have you. Today, we're diving into a tale that feels like it's ripped from a Hollywood drama, but it's real, raw, and profoundly moving. It's about Mia, a 6-year-old girl trapped in a nightmare of fear and neglect. Victor Langston, a millionaire whose polished exterior hides a lonely heart, and a moment that turned their worlds upside down. This isn't just about wealth or terror. It's about compassion, redemption, and the courage to rewrite a broken story in an instant. Let's meet Victor Langston. At 52, he's a financial mogul in New York City, a titan whose name is etched on Wall Street's legacy. Worth over $200 million, Victor lives in a Manhattan penthouse that's a masterpiece of luxury. Soaring ceilings with crystal chandeliers, marble floors that gleam under soft lighting, a private art gallery filled with Picassos and Warhols, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the city skyline twinkling against the night. His life is a showcase of achievement, bespoke suits tailored in London, exclusive galas with global elites, and a reputation for being shrewd, driven, and unapproachable. But behind the polished facade, Victor is a solitary figure. Widowed 5 years ago after losing his wife, Anna, to illness, he has no children and has buried himself in work, building walls around his heart. His staff, maids, chefs, chauffeurs run his life like a well-oiled machine, but he barely acknowledges them, their names and faces a blur in his high-stakes world of mergers and acquisitions. Now let's meet Mia. She's a 6-year-old with curly auburn hair that bounces when she moves, bright blue eyes that hold a quiet strength, and a smile that masks a world of pain. Mia lives with her father, Michael, and her stepmother, Laura, in a modest, cluttered apartment in Brooklyn, just a few miles from Victor's towering empire. Michael works as a maintenance worker in one of Victor's office buildings, a sleek glass tower in Manhattan's financial district, a job that keeps the family afloat but leaves little room for comfort. Mia's mother, Emily, died of cancer when she was 2, leaving Michael to raise her alone. Laura, who entered their lives a year later, is a cold, resentful presence, viewing Mia as a burden rather than a daughter. Mia spends her days trying to stay out of Laura's way, clutching a tattered stuffed bear named Teddy, her only source of comfort in a home filled with tension and fear. Michael's job demands long hours, often stretching into the night, and Mia frequently tags along, sitting quietly in the maintenance room with a worn coloring book or a library book about brave princesses and magical lands. Her small frame, draped in a faded sweater, goes unnoticed by the bustling office workers hurrying through the tower's marble lobby. Victor, who rarely visits his properties, has never seen Mia, never noticed the little girl who spends hours in the shadows of his empire. To him, Michael is just another employee, a name on a roster he never bothers to review, lost in the churn of his multi-million-dollar deals. But Mia isn't invisible to everyone. Clara, a security guard at the office building, notices her. A warm, grandmotherly woman in her 60s, Clara sees how Mia is too quiet for a 6-year-old, how her eyes dart nervously when Laura's name is mentioned, how she clings to Teddy like a lifeline. Clara offers her snacks, cookies from the break room, a shiny apple, and tells her stories of faraway castles, trying to make her feel safe, even if just for a moment. But Clara senses something's deeply wrong, though she lacks the proof to act. Victor, consumed by his financial empire, is oblivious to Mia's existence, let alone the pain she carries. That is, until one desperate, stormy night, a moment that will shatter his carefully constructed world and force him to confront a reality he never imagined. Let's dive into the problem that set the stage for this life-altering encounter. Mia's life was a quiet nightmare, a stark contrast to the innocence her 6 years should have held. She should have been playing with dolls, giggling at silly cartoons, or chasing imaginary fairies in a sunlit park. Instead, she was navigating a world of fear, where every day was a tightrope walk over a chasm of tension. Michael, her father, was a kind but overworked man, stretched thin by his maintenance job at Victor's office building. His long hours left him exhausted, his grief over losing Emily still raw, blinding him to the full extent of Mia's struggles. Laura, his new wife, was a cold, resentful presence, her heart hardened by her own frustrations and ambitions. She saw Mia as an inconvenience, a reminder of Michael's past life, and her sharp words and icy glares filled their Brooklyn apartment, a cramped, cluttered space with peeling wallpaper and a flickering heater, with an oppressive dread. Mia learned to stay small, to avoid Laura's wrath, but it wasn't always enough. Bruises from accidents, a push too hard, a grip too tight, were hidden under long sleeves, and her voice carried a nervous tremble, her bright blue eyes shadowed with fear. Michael's long shifts meant Mia was often left in Laura's care, a situation that filled the little girl with dread. When Michael worked overtime, Mia would tag along to the office building, sitting in the maintenance room with Teddy, her stuffed bear, coloring on scrap paper or reading a tattered library book to escape the reality of her home life. The office building, with its gleaming marble floors and towering glass walls, was a world apart from her Brooklyn apartment, but even there, Mia felt the weight of her fear. Clara, the security guard, took a special interest in her. She noticed Mia's wariness, her thin frame under a faded sweater, the way she'd flinch at loud noises or when Michael's phone buzzed with Laura's calls. Clara suspected abuse, those subtle bruises, the way Mia seemed to shrink when Laura's name came up, but she didn't have proof. She'd tried talking to Michael, gently asking about Mia's home life, but he was too exhausted, too wrapped in his own grief and denial, to see the truth. "Laura's just strict," he'd say, brushing off Clara's concerns, his voice heavy with fatigue. Victor, meanwhile, lived in a different universe. His Manhattan penthouse was a fortress of solitude, its sleek design a testament to his wealth, but not his warmth. He was a man of routine, his life a carefully choreographed dance of boardroom battles, financial deals, and high-stakes negotiations. The loss of his wife, Anna, 5 years ago had left him guarded, his heart sealed behind walls of work and ambition. Victor had built Langston Financial from a small investment firm to a Wall Street giant, his focus on profit and power unwavering. His staff, dozens of employees across his properties, were invisible to him, their personal lives as irrelevant as the dust they cleaned. When his property manager mentioned Michael's occasional lateness or distracted demeanor, Victor was dismissive, his response curt, "Handle it." His mind was on a $100 million acquisition, not a maintenance worker or the child who tagged along. But Mia's situation was growing dire. Laura's resentment was escalating, her punishments growing harsher. She'd lock Mia in her room for hours, withhold meals as discipline, or leave her alone in the apartment while she went out, claiming Mia needed to learn independence. Mia's only refuge was the office building, where Clara's kindness, her warm smiles, her stories of magical forests, her sneaky snacks, offered a fleeting sense of safety. But even there, Mia couldn't escape the fear that followed her, the knowledge that Laura's anger waited at home. The breaking point came one stormy evening in late winter, the kind of night where rain lashed the city and thunder rattled windows. Michael was working overtime at the office building, trying to earn extra to cover overdue bills. Laura, frustrated after a fight with him over money, turned her anger on Mia, accusing her of ruining everything. In a fit of rage, she dragged Mia to the apartment's storage closet, a dark, cramped space filled with dusty boxes, and locked her inside, shouting, "Stay there until you learn to behave." Mia, terrified, banged on the door, her small fists pounding, her voice raw as she screamed, "Don't leave me here." Her cries echoed through the thin walls, carrying into the stormy night. Victor, by chance, was visiting his office building that night for a late meeting with investors, his Rolls-Royce parked across the street. As he walked to his car, umbrella shielding him from the rain, he heard Mia's desperate screams from the apartment complex nearby. He froze, his heart pounding, the sound cutting through the storm like a siren. Following the cries, he reached a ground-floor window and saw Mia's small hands pounding on a locked closet door, her face streaked with tears, her voice breaking with fear. Victor didn't know Mia, didn't know her story, but her screams, "Don't leave me here," pierced his hardened exterior, awakening something deep within him. Who was this child, and why was she trapped like this? Let's go back to understand how this moment unfolded and what Victor did next to change everything. To grasp the full weight of that moment, we need to rewind to Mia's life before that stormy night. She was born to Michael and Emily, a couple whose Brooklyn apartment was once filled with love and laughter. Emily was a vibrant artist, her sketches of flowers and cityscapes brightening their small home. But cancer stole her when Mia was 2, leaving Michael devastated and Mia with only faint memories of her mother's warmth. Michael threw himself into raising Mia, working long hours as a maintenance worker to keep them afloat. He loved his daughter fiercely, reading her bedtime stories and tucking Teddy, her stuffed bear, beside her each night. But grief and exhaustion wore him down, making him vulnerable. Laura entered their lives a year later when Mia was 3. She was a coworker of Michael's, charming at first, promising companionship and stability. But her warmth faded after marriage, replaced by resentment toward Mia, whom she saw as a burden, a tie to Michael's past that clashed with her own ambitions of a carefree life. Their apartment became a battleground, its cluttered rooms heavy with tension. Laura's sharp words cut like knives, and her punishments grew cruel, snapping at Mia for small mistakes, locking her in her room, or withholding dinner as discipline. Mia learned to survive by staying quiet, hiding in her room with Teddy, whispering stories of magical forests where no one was angry. Bruises from Laura's accidents, a shove, a tight grip, were hidden under sweaters, and Mia's bright blue eyes grew wary, her laughter a rare sound. When Michael worked late at Victor's office building, a gleaming tower of glass and steel in Manhattan's financial district, Mia would tag along, sitting in the maintenance room, a small space filled with cleaning supplies and flickering fluorescent lights. She'd color on scrap paper or read tattered library books about brave princesses, escaping into worlds where fear didn't exist. Clara, the security guard, became her quiet protector. A grandmotherly figure with a warm smile, Clara noticed Mia's nervousness, her thin frame under a faded sweater, the way she'd cling to Teddy when Michael's phone buzzed with Laura's calls. Clara would offer snacks, cookies, an apple, a granola bar, and tell stories of faraway castles, hoping to coax a smile. She suspected abuse, those subtle bruises and Mia's wariness raising red flags, but she lacked proof. She'd tried talking to Michael, gently asking about Mia's home life, but he was too exhausted, too wrapped in grief and denial, to see the truth. "Laura's just strict," he'd say, his voice heavy, brushing off her concerns. Victor, meanwhile, was a man of precision, his life a carefully orchestrated empire. The loss of his wife, Anna, 5 years ago to a sudden illness, had left him guarded, his heart sealed behind walls of ambition. He'd built Langston Financial from a small investment firm to a Wall Street powerhouse, buying and managing properties that shaped New York's skyline. His Manhattan penthouse was a showcase of wealth, marble floors, modern art, a rooftop terrace with city views, but it was a lonely place, filled with the hum of staff but no real connection. Victor rarely visited his properties, leaving management to his team. Michael's struggles, Mia's presence, none of it registered. When his property manager mentioned Michael's occasional tardiness or distracted demeanor, Victor dismissed it with a curt, "Handle it," his mind on a $100 million acquisition. He didn't know Mia existed, didn't know a child was suffering under the shadow of his empire. But Mia's world was darkening. Laura's resentment grew into cruelty, her punishments escalating. She'd lock Mia in her room for hours, skip meals as discipline, or leave her alone in the apartment while she went out, claiming Mia needed to toughen up. The office building became Mia's only refuge, where Clara's kindness offered a fleeting sense of safety. But even there, Mia carried her fear, knowing Laura's anger waited at home. That stormy night, after a heated fight with Michael over money, Laura turned her rage on Mia, accusing her of causing trouble. She dragged Mia to the apartment's storage closet, a dark, cramped space filled with dusty boxes and spiderwebs, and locked her inside, shouting, "Stay there until you learn to behave." Mia, terrified, pounded on the door, her small fists aching, her voice breaking as she screamed, "Don't leave me here." Her cries carried through the thin walls, piercing the stormy night. Victor, leaving his late meeting at the office building, was walking to his Rolls-Royce, umbrella shielding him from the rain. His mind was on stock portfolios when Mia's screams reached him from the apartment complex across the street. He froze, the sound cutting through the storm like a blade. Following the cries, he reached a ground-floor window and saw Mia's small hands pounding on a locked closet door, her face streaked with tears, her voice raw with fear. Victor didn't know Mia, didn't know her story, but her screams, "Don't leave me here," shattered his hardened exterior, awakening a surge of compassion he hadn't felt in years. He acted fast, calling the police, who forced entry and found Mia, trembling and clutching Teddy. He confronted Laura, who deflected with excuses, but Michael, arriving home, broke down, admitting he'd been blind to her cruelty. Victor, torn between anger and pity, promised to help, but only if Mia was protected immediately, her safety non-negotiable. That moment outside the apartment was a seismic shift. Mia's scream, "Don't leave me here," shattered Victor's detachment, piercing the walls he'd built around his heart. He saw a child in terror, her small hands pounding on a locked door, and he couldn't walk away. With police help, the door was forced open, revealing Mia, her small body shaking, her face streaked with tears, Teddy clutched tightly against her chest. Victor learned from Michael, who arrived in a panic, about Laura's cruelty and his own failures. Blinded by grief and exhaustion, he hadn't seen the truth. Victor arranged for a social worker to place Mia in temporary foster care that night, ensuring she was safe and warm, while funding counseling for Michael to address his grief and denial. But Victor didn't stop there. He hired a lawyer to ensure Laura faced legal consequences for her abuse, building a case to protect Mia. He visited Mia in foster care, bringing books about princesses and a new sketchpad, learning her love for stories and drawing. "You're safe now," he promised, kneeling to meet her blue eyes, which flickered with wary hope. Mia, hesitant but sensing his sincerity, began to trust him. Victor petitioned to become her legal guardian, determined to give her the stable, loving home she deserved. The court, seeing his commitment and resources, approved, and Mia moved into his penthouse, her small presence filling its silent spaces with life, her laughter a new melody in a home once defined by solitude. Mia's story is more than a millionaire's rescue, it's a testament to the power of one moment to change a life. Victor didn't just save Mia, he found purpose in her resilience, a reason to open his heart after years of solitude. He became her guardian, transforming his penthouse into a home filled with warmth, bedtime stories, and the sound of Mia's laughter. Michael, now in recovery and attending counseling, visits regularly, rebuilding his bond with Mia under Victor's supportive watch. Victor, once a solitary figure, is now a father figure, reading tales of magical forests, framing Mia's colorful drawings and marveling at her courage and spirit. Today, Mia is a thriving 7-year-old, her auburn curls bouncing as she plays in the penthouse's sunlit rooms, her blue eyes bright with hope. Victor founded a foundation for abused children, inspired by Mia's strength, funding shelters, legal aid, and programs to break cycles of pain. This story shows that compassion can rewrite futures, that one act of kindness can heal a child's wounds and transform a heart, reminding us all of the power we hold to change lives. If Mia and Victor's story touched your heart, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs a spark of hope. Subscribe and ring the bell for more stories that inspire and uplift. Drop a comment. Have you ever witnessed an act of compassion that changed a life? We'd love to hear your story. Let's spread kindness together. See you in the next video.